start sharing my screen and make sure that this all works correctly. Excellent. Good. Nearly there. Bear with me one more minute. All right. So you should all be able to see my screen. As Klaus mentioned, I am here to talk about product operations. My name is Antonia. Hello. And let's dive right into it. So actually, before we start, I would like to say I'm very, very open to questions. And I hope that we have enough time at the very end to address all of them. So please don't be shy. Type them into the chat as soon as you have a question. Don't be shy, and we will address them as soon as my talk is done. Good. So let's start from the start. Why am I here? Why is it me talking about this? Hi, my name is Antonia. This is a picture of me from last summer because I miss summer and it looks like it's going to snow again in Berlin. As Klaus mentioned, I'm a product ops coach and consultant. I have been in product and tech for nearly a decade, which actually shocked me when I realized this. So been around for a while. And I've had many different roles at many different companies in that time. And that is a good thing because I've seen a lot of different aspects of product management, of how a product team operates. I've seen what works. I've seen what doesn't work, all through very personal, painful experiences. But let's get to the main point of today, right? What is product ops? There's been quite a bit of buzz about the role in recent years, I would say. I've officially been doing it for 2.5 years, which almost makes me a veteran in the discipline, which just goes to show you just how new it is. Unofficially, I've probably been doing it my entire career. And I do want to mention here that because it's still so new, because it's still so emerging, a lot of companies do it very differently. So when I'm talking today, I'm talking about my personal experience and my personal definitions of product ops. But without further ado, let's get into it. And I think we need to look at product ops from two different angles, right? So first of all, for individuals, product ops is really there to empower you to do your best work. And what does that mean? It means that you have the tools, processes, frameworks, knowledge, and resources available to you to do your best work, right? But we can also look at this from a leadership perspective, from an organizational perspective. And there, what I would really say is that product ops enables the whole organization to run like a well-oiled machine. You know, stuff isn't difficult. We are not running around like headless chickens, wondering who to speak to, where to get a particular bit of information. Who do I ask if I need a license for a particular tool or I need a brand new tool? Everything runs smoothly. Everything just works. And there are some interesting points here around, is it necessary? And if it is, well, why is it important? And well, first of all, I would say product ops isn't necessary, right? We are not there yet as a function to say we are a must-have, right? Because let's be frank, companies are doing perfectly fine without it. They are hitting their targets, hitting their goals. Sure, stuff is a little bit more difficult than it has to be, but we're delivering. Stuff is moving forward. But product ops can enable you to do so much more. And there are two aspects really to this. The first one is really supercharging your team and your own expertise, right? Like, sure, you are reaching your goals today, but you could overshoot them in the future. Sure, you are preventing churn and making enough money to trot along, but what if you could become the market leader in your industry? Product ops can enable that. And the second aspect is future-proofing. And this might not seem as relevant today in the sort of economic downturn, but there are companies that are still growing rapidly, hiring like crazy, right? And what happens when a new product manager joins your team? How soon do they become efficient? How do they learn what product management means at your particular company? These are all things that product ops can enable. And usually when I talk about product ops like this, somebody usually stops me and says, well, hold on. This all sounds like leadership stuff. A, isn't this something a product leader should do? And B, well, if this is all leadership enablement, why should I as an individual care? And let me take you on a little journey here, and I promise we're going to get somewhere. But let's imagine for a second that this is your kitchen. And let's imagine it's dinner time, like it's going to be very soon, and you want to make a meal. For example, I don't know, a pan-fried chicken breast with a nice side salad and maybe some yogurt sauce, right? You forgot to defrost the chicken. First hurdle. But it's okay. You can still fry it. It's going to take a little bit more time. It's going to end up rubbery, let's be honest, but you can kind of get over it. The salad you bought a few days ago, a little bit wilted, but it's okay. Now, you have 2 avocados on your pantry. The first one was ready a week ago, so it's now complete mush. The second one is going to be ripe in about 3 to 4 business days. Still, you're going to use it because you really want avocado. Get some nice cherry tomatoes out of the fridge, but they were at the very back of the fridge and your fridge is too cold, so now half of them are frozen. Looking at the yogurt sauce, you got the wrong yogurt. It's not lactose free. So now you need to consider, well, how much pain do I want to be by the end of the day? So you have a rubbery, a little bit dodgy chicken breast, a disappointing salad, and a yogurt sauce that you're not sure you really want to eat. Now imagine you could be working in this kitchen. You defrosted the chicken breast well in advance, safely and healthily. The salad was freshly bought. Your fridge is the correct temperature for your vegetables to not get frozen, and you have the right yogurt, and the avocados are perfectly ripe. What I'm trying to say here is that product ops makes product excellence effortless. And that's really what it's all about. And speaking of leadership, product ops isn't just something that makes individual contributors shine. It makes leadership shine too. Because as a leader, you shouldn't be focusing on negotiating with vendors, making sure that the freelancers get paid on time, making sure that all the licenses are distributed and that the right people speak to each other. You should be working on the strategy. You should be working on the company's mission, vision, and values, right? These are important things. You should be working on developing your team members and not doing busy work that somebody else could do. Now, I've spoken a little bit about the value of product ops. Let's now go a little bit more into practice and talk about the parameters of product ops implementation, because there's actually a couple of different ways you can do this. Now, we have who and how. The who is about who does product ops enable. Is it everybody in a product team? So including engineers, designers, QA, and so on. Or is it exclusively a function enabling product managers? And on the how side, we have embedded versus centralized. Embedded means, are you taking care of one specific product team or maybe 2 or 3? Or are you looking at the product organization as a whole? Now, the first thing here is that if you're doing embedded work that serves everyone in a product team, you're probably doing agile coaching. And a lot of the time I get asked, okay, what's the difference between product ops and agile coaching? This is the difference, right? Again, none of this is necessarily better or worse than the other thing. It's just important to know where we stand. Secondly, if you're serving anyone, but you're doing it from a centralized function, you're likely doing product ops for a small organization, right? This is something that happened to me, not necessarily a bad thing. It can actually be very helpful looking at the whole organization as a whole, because you will very easily see the connections, and it's much easier to break down silos. Centralized for PMs only is what you could consider so-called pure product ops. Again, not necessarily better or worse than the other, right? But when we speak about product ops, a lot of the time we are looking at this particular flavor. And then last but not least, you're looking at PMs only, but you're embedded. You might be working in a very large organization. And in this case, embedded doesn't necessarily mean you're looking at product teams specifically, but you might be looking at a specific domain, right? You might be looking at a specific vertical, because it's important to really clearly understand how that particular vertical works. One of the questions I get a lot when I speak about product ops is, when should I start thinking about product ops? So this can come from a leader who thinks, yes, these are important topics. This could come from an individual, maybe a PM or somebody else on the team, thinking, actually, I think we really need this. But what is the right size of organization to introduce product ops? And this is going to be very unsatisfying, because it's a big, it depends, right? It depends what you want to achieve. It depends what you want to focus on. It depends how painful it is to be a PM or in a product team in your organization. Some companies might never need product ops or greatly benefit from product ops. It depends also where you want to go as a product company and how far away you are from that today. Good. Now, again, we have gotten a little bit more concrete, but I want to really make this very concrete, because a lot of people have a hard time envisioning what a product ops manager's day-to-day looks like, which actually totally makes sense, because there is a huge range of tasks that can be on our lists, from very operational to very strategic. So let's take a look at some very concrete examples. And these are all things that I have done in the past myself. So something that could be regarded almost trivial, but what's the naming convention for our Slack channels? Taking it a step further, when do we archive channels? What happens to channels with 0 members, right? These are things that might not feel like they introduce a huge amount of value, but these are quality of life improvements. Moving a little bit further on the scale, how can somebody submit a bug report and what happens to it afterwards? Again, might feel trivial in the beginning, but this can have really big ramifications. Imagine you're in customer success and you submit a bug report and then nothing happens. You don't know if somebody is looking at it. You don't know if it's going to get fixed or when or how. And think about the other side as well. You might be a PM or even an engineer on an Agile coach, and people keep bugging you about bugs that you know are known issues. Well, how do these people find out these are known issues? How do you close that feedback loop, right? How do we enable experimentation? Going even further up the strategic road, how do we make sure that PMs are experimenting? What tools do we provide them with? What techniques do we coach them on? When is it appropriate to do an A/B test? When is it appropriate to do user interviews? How do we make sure that the whole organization learns from these outcomes? Even further, how do we make sure our PMs keep learning? Do we have learning paths? Should we? When does somebody get promoted, right? How do we access our conference budget? And at the very, very end of the strategic scale, what kind of product organization do we want to be? And this is incredibly important for product ops to address together with senior leadership, because product ops is the enabler that will take you there. Now, looking at this, you might be forgiven for thinking, well, hold on a minute. I'm not sure I'm into this at all. I'm not sure I want product ops in my organization, because it sounds like they're really going to tell me how I'm supposed to do my job and how I'm supposed to do all these things that actually I already know how to do. And it's very, very important for us to be very clear and remember that a good product ops manager will never make product decisions, right? That is your domain. That is your expertise. I can make sure you have access to the data. What insights you gather from that data is on you. I have nothing to do with that, right? Same with leadership. I can facilitate a discussion around strategy. I will not make strategy decisions. That is a leadership topic. That is your expertise. Product ops facilitates great work, but great work needs to happen from you. As I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this quite a while, officially and unofficially, mostly because I always used to be the person that would get frustrated the quickest when something didn't work. So I was the one looking at our Jira settings when my team decided to work slightly differently. I was the one starting to formalize how we write user stories, for example, because there was no good way of comparing them, etc., etc. So I've been doing this for a while, did it badly quite a few times, but I'd like to think that I've started to sort of learn what it takes to introduce positive change in an organization. And of course, I'm very aware that very few companies have dedicated product ops. So I find it really important that I can stay here today and share my learnings so that you can introduce positive change. And there are a few things I would love for you to remember whenever you come across something that you feel could be improved or needs to be addressed. And the first one is, well, don't assume that your pain is everybody's pain, right? Like, I would get frustrated about something that felt very important to me, but it was trivial to the whole organization. Was that a good use of my time? No, not at all. If I really wanted to affect positive change, I should have picked something that could help a lot of people, even if maybe that felt a little bit less relevant to me personally. Second one, and very important, especially when talking about process, start small and stay lean, right? Especially process in product ops. It's not something that somebody will just go away, think about for 3 months, and then come back with a fully formed plan, implement it, and assume everybody will just be on board with it. That is not going to work. What you need to do is you need to identify the smallest positive change you can do today that will take you to where you want to be ultimately. And stay lean. Be prepared to discard things. Be prepared to say, yeah, we tried that. That didn't really work. We're going to try something else now. Don't assume a new tool is the answer. I have seen this mistake a lot, and I've probably done it a couple of times myself. It's very tempting, right, to give into all the slogans. But it takes a lot more than buying a tool for a successful tool implementation. It takes education, it takes setting it up, it takes maintenance, it takes making sure it talks to all your other tools. Make sure you are 100% certain that this is the right way to go before you invest in a new tool. And make sure, thinking about start small and stay lean, make sure that you've verified that that is the case. And you've also verified is something you can't do with existing tools, or you can't do with something very generic like a whiteboard or a spreadsheet. Measure and iterate. So important, right? We want to be able to know that we're moving in the right direction. You've identified the problem. You've identified the smallest thing you can do. Well, how do you know if you're actually going in the right direction? Take people with you. I cannot stress this enough, especially if you're a product ops manager or an aspiring product ops manager. Product ops cannot be done in a vacuum, right? It's a people role. You are affecting people's lives, and it's important you keep the communication channels open at all time. You take them with you. And speaking of that, communicate at all times. Tell people the problem you've identified, how you've identified it, how you've verified it's a problem. Tell them the smallest steps you're going to take together. Tell them the success criteria and take them on the journey with you. Now, some of you might have caught on to what I'm trying to say here, but all of this together is really just acting like a product manager, right? Let's go back to this slide. It's problem discovery, it's experimentation, it's measuring, it's communication, it's taking people on a journey. This is product management principles. And product operations is no different. You have customers. They might just be internal, but they are just as important. And it's just as important to remember to do user interviews, to experiment, to start small, fail early before you launch something that took you 3 months to build and nobody wants. And at this point, you might be quite intrigued and maybe might start thinking, well, this actually sounds very nice. I'd like to maybe try being a product ops manager. Or like me, you might realize that, hold on, I think I've been doing product ops this entire time. Maybe I should do this. I didn't realize this was a viable career. So let's talk a little bit about getting this job. And a few people come to me every so often, you know, on LinkedIn or during meetups, for example, to ask, I want to get into product, or I want to get into product ops. How do I take that leap of faith? How do I get that first job? And my first piece of advice is always prove you can do the job before getting the title. And luckily, that's a little easier in product ops than it is in product management, because processes are all around us, right? We are speaking on Google Meet today. Maybe we should have picked a different tool. Maybe we should figure out how to prioritize questions. Maybe there was a way I could have delivered this presentation in a way that didn't need me to sit here and talk to you live, even though I do very much enjoy it, right? Prove you can do the job before getting the title. Look around you. And honestly, if you're interested in product ops, chances are you have done this work before. You just need to frame it in the right way. A few common questions that come up when people want to move into product ops. One of them being, well, do I need to be in product? Do I need to have product management experience? And the answer is no, but it helps. And what I mean by that is, remember, I talked about those, 6 things to remember. That is pure product management. So if you have a good grasp of the concept, and you can get that anywhere, you don't need to be an active duty product manager, right, to do that. But it's the more you understand a PM's experience, the easier it will be for you to identify roadblocks and how to solve those. Do I need product ops experience? Formal? No. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of people in product ops today are doing this for the first time. But practical experience, yes. Proof you can do it before you apply. Where do I find product ops jobs? I mean, where do you find all your other tech jobs, right? LinkedIn has, for me, still looked to be the best platform. You can join some communities with job boards as well. But I also would like to urge you to explore internal roles, right? How about you create that role for yourself? Maybe you can go to your manager and say, hey, I'm really interested in this new thing called product ops, and I think we could really benefit from it. How about I spend 30% of my time doing it? And last but not least, how much does it pay? I can tell you how much it should pay, and the answer to that is as much as the equivalent role in product management. If you're being paid or you get an offer that is considerably less than that, it's very likely you will be a glorified team assistant, which nobody wants to do, right? So if you go in as a product ops manager, you should be paid the same as a product manager. If you go in as a head of product ops, you should be paid the same as a head of product. But there are also a few caveats. So let's address those right here. If you start in product ops, and especially if you start at a company that has never had product ops before, you're likely starting as a team of one. And being a team of one is incredibly hard. You don't have that inherent support system. You don't have people that share your experience unless you explicitly build that, and that takes time. Expect to do a lot of PR, a lot of advocating for yourself and for your role and for the work you do, because it is still an emerging function. And even in companies that do invest in product ops, not everybody will get it, and it will take a little bit of time. Third, be mindful of your focus. And this comes in two ways, right? Be mindful that you don't stay purely operationally, but you also spend some time on strategic topics, but also be mindful of not getting roped into things just because you're that organized person, right? I've seen it happen. I have been there, and it has its uses sometimes, but you also have to be prepared to take a hard line and say no. And last but not least, everything is still in flux. Now, this might be a fun and exciting things to some people, but it's also sometimes very hard, right? There are no product ops best practices yet. There are no very clearly defined roles. We are still figuring things out. But at least for me, I'm very happy I joined the product ops world. To me, it is absolutely worth the trouble. I think it's a very unique role and position, and it's a big privilege to be able to look at product organizations as a whole and enabling them to get even better at what they do. And that's already it from my side. Thank you very much. This is a QR code you can use if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn. I write a lot about product management and operations, obviously, product-like transformation, and product culture. Thank you so much. And I am very happy to take some questions now.